Hello, thank you for the introduction. My name is Anja Schultze-Krumbholz. I'm from the Technische University in Berlin, where I'm currently the chair of educational psychology. And today I brought you a presentation about the role of schools in cyberbullying, because usually people just think it's a private problem. So there's always the argument that it doesn't concern schools, it doesn't concern school personnel because it's a private problem and students do it outside of school. Because studies have actually shown that it takes place more outside of school, but this is probably also due to the reason that cell phones, for example, are often not allowed in school, or that the usage time in school is reduced. So let's take a look at why we should actually look at the role of schools in cyberbullying. So when we want to look at the risk and protective factors of cyberbullying, we can place them in different levels. So we have different dimensions of risk and protective factors. And some of them are of the individual kind. That means that they are in the person themselves, like Professor Pojalski already mentioned. Empathy, for example, is within the person, him or herself. But then we also have risk and protective factors that pertain to the surroundings, to the relationships. So some of the risk and protective factors lie within the friendships, or within the peers, or within the family maybe. So the next dimension is communities. So some of the risk and protective factors can be found in the characteristics of schools, in the characteristic of daycare centers, or maybe other communities, other groups that students go to after school, like sports clubs or Girl or Boy Scouts. So there are also risk and protective factors in these areas. And then the widest level of these kind of risk and protective factors are in the society. So certain regulations can protect or increase cyberbullying. The social networks, for example, like an example of society's influence on this kind of behavior. So why is school relevant? What we have seen is that school is a major socialization room, which means that students, children, and adolescents spend a huge amount of time in school. Like for example, for Germany, it's between 27.6 and 29.7 hours per week. So if you think about it, if you round it, it's like 30 hours per week, just learning time. No break times, no after-school activities. So basically, students spend almost as much time as grown-ups spend at their work. So that means school is a very relevant context for this age group. Also, what we see is a big overlap between the bullying context. So offline conflicts in school carry on online, for example. So students, they have an argument in school, they have a fight in school, they go home and they continue to have the fight online. Also, it's a group dynamic process. It's not only a bully and a victim, but it's also between all the other members of the class, for example. So we have bystanders, we have onlookers, we have supporters of the bully, and so on. And also what we've seen is that predominant norms in the classroom, for example, influence individual behavior. So it depends on what kind of sanctions actually exist in the class, whether students prefer doing this behavior or whether students refrain from this behavior. There are also studies on class structures. So if we have a class where there are small groups like cliques, the more of these kind of small groups are within the class, the more cyberbullying you will see also among these students. And also there is an impact on school-related variables. So cyberbullying actually impacts students' school achievement, students' school engagement, the feeling of connectedness to school, and also the feeling of safety. So how safe they actually feel in school. And also what we've seen, for example, from our own research is that the extent of offline bullying within one class increases the probability of cyberbullying among these students. Like I already said, more safety problems in the school increases also cyberbullying, but also leads to people showing less defending behavior. So students who are not actually a victim, but who witness the bullying, they are less likely to defend the victim if there are safety problems in school. And also less positive interactions between the students in school lead to more assisting behavior. So that means more students support the bully and help the bully or spread the contents as compared to classes with more positive interactions. And also what we've seen in our own research and generally is that teachers actually have a problem recognizing cyberbullying, which is of course understandable because it's not easy to see, it's not easy to notice. Students have to be very confiding in the teachers, but the problem is the teachers only notice cyberbullying when it's actually very severe. So there's a very low sensitivity and a high threshold. So teachers do not easily recognize this kind of problem among their students. So what we've also just heard about are meta-analyses. I brought you the one from Kowalski and colleagues. And what we see here are the risk and protective factors that they found for perpetration and victimization. And what we also see among these relevant aspects are school climate and school safety. So apart from individual factors, we see that the school actually plays a role. So what can be done, for example, for teachers, for other school staff? What are your options for action, especially if you have currently a cyberbullying incident? So there's a possibility to support the victim, or there's it's a recommendation actually to support the victim and to help the victim preserve the evidence. So the evidence that's there, you should help the victim to try to save it, for example. This doesn't necessarily have to be the teacher. So I know it's with the German teachers and the pre-service teachers that I teach, we always have the discussion that the teacher cannot know everything and the teacher is not supposed to know all this technical stuff. But if you have like a IT teacher in your school, or if you have maybe younger teachers who are familiar with the technical things, ask them to do it. So it's not like the teacher should be left alone and should be doing all this by themselves. It's really a recommendation to seek support also for the teachers. So the second step is to assess the severity of the incident. So you should try to find out, is it something not so severe, or is it something really severe? If it's really severe, you should try to seek support, maybe get a school psychologist to support you and the victim, try to find legal advice. So these kind of things are your options. And then, of course, it's also within the school, you should think about whether there are options for action, like disciplinary measures, or what kind of support the school can give to the victim. You can help to identify the perpetrator or the perpetrators, and also, again, help collect evidence. So not just save evidence, but actively seek for evidence. Of course, also support the victim to arrange professional help, to find counseling, or to offer mediation within the school. So if it's a conflict that started in school, the teachers or the school staff can try to mediate between these two parties. Also, if possible, try to help with removing the contents or with telling the children and the adolescents how they are able to block these kind of contents. You can try to contact the providers to help the victim get these contents removed. You can teach the students about password changes, about how to change telephone numbers or profile names, or even like whole new profiles. And also you can think about informal solution strategies. So you can include the parents of the perpetrator. You can seek school counseling. You can try to include peer mediation if it's not such a severe incident. And also it might be possible to find out the motives for this behavior. And if you know the motives, maybe it is possible to remove them through discussion, through mediation. So these are all kinds of things you can do when you have an acute incident of cyberbullying in your class. And of course, you can implement whole school approaches. So you can use programs, you can, after you have resolved an incident, of course, you can resort also to preventive approaches, which I've also brought you an example of. So this is a German prevention program, which I developed with my research group at the Free University of Berlin. It's a school-based program. It's implemented by teachers. It already contains the teaching materials. It's a universal approach. It has a theoretical foundation, and there are two versions. It's a 10-week version against a one-day version. And I just want to show you quickly, so this is like the theoretical basis. We are working on education. We are working in group to foster discussions, to foster perspective taking. We are doing skills training, so we are improving empathy. We are improving solution strategies. And with all these, we want to change the attitudes, we want to change norms, and also we want to change how students can control their behavior. If they have any solutions, if they have any strategies, if they see cyberbullying, what they can do. And so in the end, of course, we want to change the whole behavior. And here you can see, just as an example, that doing prevention in school actually works. So actually the school can do something, and the school can achieve something, even if you still think, or if the school staff thinks it's not a problem of the school, but more a personal problem. You see that even with preventive intervention, the school can achieve changes. So you see the one-day version, at least it stabilizes the problem, it increases perspective taking, and the long program, the 10-week program, you see that it decreases cyberbullying, it decreases offline bullying, it decreases the willingness of the people to cyberbully, it improves empathy and perspective take, and it improves self-esteem of the victims, of all students actually, and it also decreases health symptoms. So schools have the possibility to do something, and it can be very effective. Yes, so I'm at the end with my presentation. I hope I could give you some optimism. I hope I could give you a positive feeling about what schools can do, and also that you have possibilities to act against cyberbullying. Yes, and I'm open to questions. If you have any questions later on, you can also send me an email. Yeah, thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I must say that there are comments on in our chat box. People had very lively reactions to what you were saying, and a comment rather than a question, but maybe you'd like to say something about it. You spoke about the 10-week program, this long program, and indeed, we also have such programs. However, someone said that they are super cool, but really it's not possible to run them because we have no time, no capacity to deal with this in such a comprehensive way. So what can be done?
So we do it in Germany. We implemented an ethics education. So we actually have lessons where we can do things like this with the students. And so, for example, if you're not able to do a whole 10-week program, that's why we developed the one-day intervention. So you see that if it does not at least increase all the things, at least stabilizes them. And you saw that the control group, they got worse everywhere. And if you do the one-day intervention, you can at least stabilize the things so that they don't decrease anymore, or that the bullying doesn't increase anymore.
Well, thank you very much. As you have said, there is a need of a comprehensive approach. We need to look at this problem from many different angles. This needs to be a program that looks at educational aspects, but also we have to look at our students very carefully. Teachers need to find mindfulness. So what school can do? What is there that school can do? What more can we do?
Well, what I also recommend is that to keep teachers updated, to do regular workshops so that they know about the most current trends, the most current developments in cyberbullying. Of course, teachers should work together. No teacher should be left on their own with this problem. So maybe it's good to do action groups in the school, like have a group of teachers who are the contact partners. So if a teacher has a problem in their class, they maybe can confer with other teachers. Maybe one teacher can be made the expert and they can do counseling for the rest of the teachers. So I think there are a lot of things that can be done. Not only these kind of programs, but there are a lot of other things that can be done. So, for example, there's a lot of teaching material like ClickSafe and Safer Internet. They present a lot of material that you can use, a lot of information material. So I think it's very important to stay active in this way and also, yes, to stay close to the adolescents.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your responses and for your very important presentation.